One of the most important things in your new relationship with God is going to be doing everything you can to learn more about Him and learn more about who He has said you are. The best way to clearly hear from and understand, to learn more about God, is to spend more time in the Bible. Before you do that, I want to make sure that you have some understanding of what the Bible is. So when you're reading it with the right frame of mind. The Bible is a collection of 66 different letters and books that are collected into two large sections called the Old Testament and the New Testament. It's written by somewhere around 40 different authors and editors who collected the works together. It's a story that's been told over thousands of years. It's not written down by one person all at one time. But the main focus of the scriptures is to tell the story of the interaction between God and mankind. There's a lot of questions that people have about the world, about God, about mankind, about the scriptures themselves, that the Bible always doesn't answer, because it's not trying to answer everything. It's trying to focus on what God thinks are the most important things, the things He wants to make sure He communicates to humanity so we can grow closer to Him and more like Him. It's one of the ways to think about the scriptures as well. A lot of times people ask, do we take the Bible literally? And the answer is sometimes. That's not because we change our theology moment for moment, but the Bible is not only a collection of a bunch of different books, it's a collection of a bunch of different kinds of literature. So the parts of the Bible that are meant to be taken literally and historically, we should read those parts of the scripture literally and historically. The parts that are meant to be taken poetically, the parts that are meant to be taken as wise sayings, the more we understand what kind of literature I'm reading while I'm reading it should determine how I read the Bible. Now, reading the scriptures, just picking up a Bible and reading it, may not always be clear what kind of literature you're reading. If you haven't been through our starting point class, I'd encourage you to sign up for that. We dive into that part a little bit more. But also, if you have the resources to get a good study Bible, like an ESV, a Life Application, or an NIV study Bible, you should have an understanding from some of the additional articles in there of what kind of literature you're reading, and that tells you how literal or how philosophical you should apply the scriptures to your own lives. Now, one of the things people always worry about too is what we're reading, what was originally written. Again, chapter 5 of the Purple Book, the way we do that in our class, goes into that a lot deeper. But there are more copies closer to the original sources of the original letters of Scripture, and more of those copies, thousands of copies of them, closer to the original source than any piece of literature or any piece of historical documentation up to that point in human history. The scriptures are incredibly reliable to trust that what was originally written is what we have now. The big question is not whether or not it's real. The question is whether or not we trust and believe what was written. And then finally, there are multiple translations of the Bible. It was originally written in Greek, Hebrew, and Aramaic. And if you ever have had to take a Spanish class, French class, if you know a different language, you know that when you translate something from one language to another, there is no perfect way to word for word translate something. So when people try to say this is the best translation of the Bible, it's really an incomplete sentence. What you need to be able to say is it's the best translation that's trying to accomplish something word for word, or trying to bring across the meaning as close as how we would understand it in our language today. There's a lot of great translations out there, ESV, NIV, NLT. The Message is a great one to read for devotional. But the advantage we have in today's day and age is we don't have to buy one Bible and stick with it. Thanks to all the free technology out there, things like YouVersion, the Read Scripture app, we don't have to choose. But my recommendation is to start with a translation that you can read and understand. I preach on Sunday mornings from the New Living Translation. Again, not because I think it's the best translation, but because I think it's about a good tension between word for word and meaning for meaning to read to an audience that hasn't grown up with the Bible and isn't used to the language that it has. So personally, when I'm reading for my devotion, I bounce back and forth between that, Message, NIV, ESV, but I think the New Living Translation, the NLT, is a great place to start. Now, there's a ton more information we can dive into about what the Bible is and how it was constructed and its authors. Again, that's something we cover in our starting point group, but I wanted to give you a brief introduction of what the Bible is and how you can start thinking about it as you prepare to read it.